Hello, welcome back to the channel. In today's lesson, I'm going to talk about the timeline, which is this area here, and how to use pegs and how to animate. So if you would like to be able to do this one day,
till all are one.
I'm going to show you how to do that, but obviously it's going to be a lesson for beginners.
Till all are one.
And this is an Optimus Prime rig that I built myself, and I animated all of this by myself. So let's begin. Let's go back to this file here. Over here in the node view, you can see that I have these three shapes. I have a 1, a 2, and a 3, and they each exist in their own drawing nodes. If you come here into the timeline, you're going to see that whenever I click on this drawing node, it will highlight this layer here, and this and this and this are the same thing. So if I click on 2, it will highlight number 2, and if I click on number 3, it will highlight number 3, this drawing object here. Now, if I want to animate those, there are some things that I need to do first. First of all, if I play the timeline here, you're going to see that my drawing objects disappear. And this is the exposure over here. So in order for us to see the drawing object all the way to the end of the timeline, we need to tell Harmony, please show me this drawing all the way to the end of the timeline. And to be able to do that, all you need to do is come to the end, click on that last frame, and hit F5. That is the function key, F5. So once I click on F5, you will be able to see your drawing all the way through. You're going to see that this gray bar exists all the way to the end. Now, if your function key does not work, which is the case for some people, you can always right click and go to extend exposure, and we can see the shortcut here. It says F5. So I'm going to click on that, and boom, there's my exposure. And I'm going to do the same thing here, only this time I'm just going to hit F5, and now we can see those three drawing objects all the way to the end. Now, the next thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to need to add pegs to these drawing objects, because the pegs are the things that let you move and animate the objects. So we can either add a peg by clicking on the drawing and clicking Shift P, or sorry, Control P, P as in Peter. If you do that, it will name the peg the same as the drawing node. However, if you don't click on this and nothing is selected here, we can see that none of them are highlighted, and I press Control P, I'm still going to get a peg, but it will be unattached, and you can simply attach it like that. And then of course you can do it for all three at the exact same time by box selecting them, holding Control, Shift, and pressing the P button, and you will get a peg for each one, all at the same time. Now you're going to notice in the timeline that these are the drawing nodes, but here this is the peg. So whenever I click on the peg, it will highlight the peg inside the timeline, and so on and so forth. You're also going to notice that there is a little gray triangle here. So whenever I click on that triangle, it will collapse it, much like a little folder. So the drawings are still there, it's just that we don't need to see them when we are animating with the pegs. So you can just close them like that. Now the shortcut for that is 0 and 9. 9 will open up the timeline, and 0 will collapse it. So those are nice shortcuts to have. Now the next thing you're going to need to do after you give pegs to each one of your drawings is, we're going to go over here and click on this transform tool. The transform tool is the tool that you want so you can animate. And you're going to see that once you do that, you're going to see this little blue dot in the middle of the screen. and there's going to be a blue dot for each one. Now that blue dot is the rotation point for your drawing object, and obviously it doesn't make too much sense to have it in the middle of the screen. So we're going to go and fix that by coming up here and clicking on the rotate tool. Now if you don't have these tools up here, you can simply right click in this gray area and choose control point. No, not control point, sorry. Advanced animation. So you right click and choose advanced animation. You're going to get these tools there. And so you click on the peg and you choose the rotate tool. You're going to see this little yellow dotted line. And the dotted line is the size of the drawing object. So we're going to hover over this blue dot here, and we're just going to drag it and drop it right here. And we're going to do the same thing for the other drawing objects. Like that. So anytime you add a peg, you will have to fix where you want the rotate tool to be, the rotation point. Now, whenever I click on that object, if I want to rotate that object, it will rotate from the center here. Also, if I want to squash or stretch it, it will remain in the center. So you can move it, you can squash it, you can skew it by just hovering over this line and then skewing it this way. And you can do that with any line. Now you might be thinking, you know, I've skewed it to the high heavens, it looks terrible, I want to reset it so that it comes back to its regular shape. It's very easily done. All you need to do is hit R for reset on your keyboard, and it will reset the object. Now the object will go back where you drew it. It will go back to its original size and placement on the screen. So no matter what I do, if I want to reset this drawing object, I could just hit R and it will reset it. It will go back here. Now the difference between the transform tool and the black arrow, the difference between the two is this is for animation and this is permanent. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go back into this drawing. I'm going to choose my black arrow, and I'm going to move this over here, and I'm also going to change the size of it. Now if I click on this animation tool, the transform tool, you're going to notice that the rotation point remains up here where I placed it in the first place. So the rotation point is there, but now the object is over here. So if I try to mess with it and I hit reset, it will go back to this size because that's where I placed it with the black arrow. So the black arrow is permanent. You want to, make sure that when you draw your objects, you want to make sure that you draw them at the correct size and at the correct placement on the screen. Once you've done that, then you can change them using the transform tool. So I'm just going to undo by clicking Control Z, and I'm going to do that multiple times until it goes back to what I had before there. And I'm going to save that. So you'll notice up here there's this little asterisk next to the name here, right there, this little asterisk. That means that the file is not saved. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to File and Save, or Control S. And then the asterisk will disappear. You'll notice that it is gone here, and that means that the file has been saved. Now as soon as I'm going to move this ball, you're going to get this little asterisk back because it's telling me that there's new information added. Okay, so anytime you move these things, it will add a keyframe on the timeline. If you want to get rid of the keyframes, you can just simply click the minus keyframe here or delete keyframes. And we can see the shortcut is F7, the function key F7. So you can click that and they'll go back here. One thing that you want to do whenever you open up Harmony is you want to make sure these are turned on here. these little buttons here, you want to make sure they're always on. They're very useful because those allow you to see the other drawings as, you know, ghosts, or they're kind of like transparent. Another thing you want to turn on when you open up Harmony is you want to go over here to your transform tool, go to tool properties, and turn on this button here, which is the peg selection mode. So the peg selection mode, what that allows you to do is, if you don't have it on, when you click on something, it will just click the drawing. So you can see the bounding box is purple and the object is kind of like bluish. So what we want to do is we want to turn this on, and then when we click on a drawing object, it will automatically take us to the peg. So now we are ready to animate. Okay, so always make sure you have those things turned on. And now what I'd like to do is just make a little animation. Now you can move them anywhere you want. As soon as you let go, it will create this little red dot, which is what it's supposed to do, this little keyframe. But if you want to move things in a straight line, you can hold shift and just move it like that. I'm going to put that over here, put this over here, and we can see that we have those 3 keyframes there. Now wherever this red needle is, if I move the object, it will create a keyframe vis-a-vis this red needle. So make sure that you are aware where this red needle is. Let's have these balls move all the way to the edge of the screen here. So I'm going to take my red needle, put them all the way to the end, and hold shift and just move these balls over like so. Whoops. And you'll see that when I get to those keyframes, the ball will appear over there because that's where I place them. But now what we want to do is we want to tween them. And so these are called keyframes. These are called frames here. And this is called a tween. The tween is called a tween because it's in between keyframes. So we just hit this button here. The shortcut is Control K. You're going to get these black lines, and those black lines will move your drawing objects all the way to the other keyframe. Now the next thing you want to know is how do I change the speed on these things? There are different ways of doing that. You can click this keyframe here, and then you can go to this little drop down menu and choose one of these curves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose this curve here, and I'm just going to play my animation. Now we can see that this one starts off really slow and then picks up speed. The other two have the same speed. Let's go on ball number 2 and choose the opposite curve of this one, which is this one here. Now number 2 speeds up quite a bit at the start and slows down at the end. Let's go to ball number 3 here and choose the S curve. Now the S curve is my favorite curve. This is the one that has ease in at the beginning, speeds up, and then eases out at the end. This is the nicest one, so I use that one quite a lot. It's slow at the start, speeds up, and then slows down at the end. Now you can rotate your ball like that, and Harmony will rotate it all the way to the end. Now if you rotate it once, it will rotate once. If you rotate it twice, it will spin 2 times. And so on and so forth. Now if you don't want it to rotate, you can unrotate it twice. As such. These tools here, they do the same thing that this tool does. They just use different methods. You can go ahead and try these things. Like if you want to remove the curves, you can just use this drop down menu and hit this right here, and now there shouldn't be any easing in or easing out. Now you can go ahead and click on these things and see what happens. Right, and if we want to get rid of them, we can just undo, so Control Z, and then we can try the other ones here. Let's try this one here. Not much going on there. A little bit of a difference there. Perhaps we can try this one here, or this one here. It really is trial and error. This one is a little bit different. This one will give you a percentage. So they all do the same thing. Let's try adding a keyframe here and tweening it, coming in here and clicking on that. Right, so it's all about trial and error. You know, if we leave it at 33, that's usually a good spot to have it. 33% is kind of like the default. Right, and then there's this menu here that gives you a graph, and you can reset the numbers if you want by hitting 0, and you can go to the previous keyframe and also resetting this and resetting this. So now there is no information there. So now we've reset that ball. Let's get rid of that keyframe here. And now there's no information there. Let's put a keyframe here and tween it and turn on this menu here and get the graph. Now the graph, you have to pull from here to get these curves. Now you want a nice curve in there. The bottom half represents this side of the screen, and the top half represents this side of the screen. You want to hit apply and then close it, and then we can watch it. So there's that curve. We can go ahead and try to change it for the other way. And hit apply, close it, and then watch what happens here. So it really is trial and error. But to be honest, as an animator, I rarely use these buttons. I only use them for the camera. So the camera looks like this. This is the camera. The camera has a peg, and we can see right over here that I have a camera move here. So here Optimus is walking, and then when he gets to this area here, the camera begins to zoom in on him this way. And if I click here, you're going to notice that there is a curve there, which makes the camera ease in and ease out.
Till all are one.
Now to add a camera, it's very simple. You go to your node library, grab the camera right here, click, drag, and drop. You want to then press Control P, and it will give you a camera peg. With the camera peg, it will appear in the timeline here, and then you can zoom in by grabbing the corner and pulling away. It will create a keyframe. And then over here, we can zoom in, and we can also move the camera like so, and we can tween the camera. It doesn't look like much because there's no background, but if you have a background, you'll notice a bigger difference. You can also look at the top view here, and you'll notice that I have this highlighted, which is the camera peg. This is the top view. This is like if you were looking at the camera from a bird's eye view. This is what the camera sees. And over here we have our 3 balls there. And when I play it, you can see that the balls are moving this way and the camera is moving in and to the right. And then if we go into the perspective mode, we can just zoom out here, and you can see where these drawing objects exist in a 3D environment. So if I hold Alt and Control and just simply drag my mouse across the screen, we can see those 2D objects exist in a 3D environment. Now this is not a very useful for now because we don't have a lot of drawing objects yet. We don't have a background and many layers and things like that, but this is something that you can do. It's quite satisfying to play around in this view, but yeah, you just hold Control and Alt and just click and drag your mouse and just move it around. Now if you want to reset that, it's Shift and M as in mother, and it will reset the view. You can also do this in the camera view by holding Control and Alt and moving the animation disk around, and then resetting it by clicking Shift M as in mother, and it will go back to that view here. So that's pretty much it for how the pegs work, how the camera works, how the timeline works, and how the easing in and easing out buttons work. Now these are very fancy, but I honestly don't use them all that much. I use them only for camera moves. And over here, if we talk a little bit about this, the rest of the buttons here, this is FPS. That means frames per second. If you're working as a 2D animator, you want to leave it at 24. And the stop and the start, this is where you want, if you want to focus on a specific area of animation within the timeline, you can click Start. It will bring this little black triangle right here. That little black triangle indicates where you want to start, and wherever you want it to stop, you can just go ahead and click Stop right here. And now you can see that there is a little black triangle right here. And now when I press play, it will only play this area here. So this is useful when you want to focus on a specific area of your animation. You can also click these things and move them around. Or you can just put the frame number that where you would like it to start, and it will go there. So could put 60 and just hit enter, and there you go. And then finally we have the end scene marker here. The end scene marker is this red marker right there. This is how long your movie is going to be. So a lot of people think that if they put the stop there and they make a QuickTime, they will get all the way up to here, but the QuickTime will go all the way to the end scene marker. So just make sure you know the difference. I guess I will stop the lesson here. Please, if you like this lesson, leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with another animator or upcoming animator or a person who is interested in animation in general. And I will see you in the next one.